What is going on, guys? Welcome back to part 15 of our Firebase Realtime Chat App series. In this part, we're going to take a look at sending and loading video messages. So I actually just went through this whole part, and right before I finished, my computer decided to restart. So I just got rid of all of our changes, and this is take two. So everyone cross your fingers that that doesn't happen again, and let's jump into the project. So sending and receiving video messages is fairly similar to how we set this whole thing up for chat messages or photo messages rather. And there's essentially three things we want to change. The first thing is going to be in chat view controller. We want to allow the user to basically pick a photo, and specifically we want to go to this function where we show an action sheet for video source. And we want to copy, before we copy that function, we want to copy this function which presents the input action sheet for the photo. And we're basically going to show the same thing for video. So go ahead and copy and paste that, change this function name to be present video input action sheet. This is going to be attach video. Where would you like to attach a video from? And we want a few changes in these implementation bodies. For the camera, we want to limit the user to only be able to select videos. So we're going to say media type is public.movie. And we also want to limit the video quality because the actual size of these videos at full quality is quite large, and we don't really need the full quality. And additionally, it just costs more money to store them on Firebase. So similarly for the photo library uses, we're going to do the same thing. And let's rename this to just be library since this is selecting a video. Finally, we present that action sheet. And now that we have this new function, we can call it from this other function here, because this itself is an action sheet. So call it off of self optional. You'll get an error because we need to introduce a weak reference to self here. And the reasoning is so we don't cause a memory leak. Now in chat view controller, we want to go down to the delegate functions for the image picker. And we want to, in this function, now handle if the user has selected a video. So we don't want to really mess with any of this code because this handles sending a photo message. But what we rather want to do is we want to have an if else for a selection of a video. So grab these first two lines in your guard statement, and let's get rid of this line break. This unwrap here, these four things are going to be used in both videos and photos, so we can leave that as is. Introduce a iflet, where we are going to just paste in what we just copied from above. Let's get rid of that line break. And I think we can actually get rid of this too and just use the dot edited image like so. And then create your iflet body. Basically, this is for a photo, and if we don't have the image and the image data, we can say that, whoops, looks like I messed up something here. I messed up this comma, we don't need this. And if we don't have the image, then we can assume we are uploading a photo or uploading a video. I'm going to confuse those so many times in this video, but go ahead and copy all of this code here and move it into that top iflet. So this is the code we wrote in the last video for sending a photo message, and none of this is going to change. So I just highlighted and did a Control-I to fix indentation. I'm going to copy this file name bit and put it down here in the else because we're still going to want a file name, and we're going to want the file name suffix to be .mov because it's a video file. And also in our else statement, we're going to say else if let video URL is going to be in our info dictionary. We want to get the media URL. And this will point to the video the user has selected or taken on the local device. And let me put a comment here for upload video. And the workflow for sending a video is basically identical as sending a photo. We first want to upload the video, then we want to send a message via the database manager. So I'm just going to be lazy and copy this whole thing, and we can edit the code as we go. So the first thing we want to edit is here we are uploading data to Storage Manager. In this case, we only have a URL. And the reason we use a URL and not data is because the data that backs a video is quite large, and it's just better practice to use the URL for performance and also to avoid crashes. So go ahead and command click into this function for Storage Manager and copy it. And we're going to create a similar function by copy and pasting it. And this one will be capable of uploading a file with a URL. So we're going to change this to be upload message video. We're going to change the comment to be upload video. It's going to be with file URL, and it's going to take a URL. And this function will turn into from put data to put file. Whoops, put file. And we want to pass in the file URL. And this should highlight, hopefully I spelled that correctly. Let's see, it should be put file. Yeah, it's put file with a capital F. So I don't know why that's not deciding to work. Oh, because the argument label is from rather than not having one. So let's put from colon here, and things should highlight properly. The other thing you want to do is change the directory. So we're going to create a new directory in our storage bucket called message videos. And once we have put this file from our local device to Firebase storage, which is basically uploading it, we're going to keep this the same for the most part. So let's validate we don't have an error. And we are going to say fail to upload video file if we do have an error. Then we want to get the download URL, so change that directory. So download URL, and then we're going to call the completion handler. I just realized that we're using self in here, so we want to say self optional and grab weak self over here for the closure so we don't introduce a memory leak. And I believe we also have done that up above, so let's fix this memory leak as well. So let's introduce weak self up here and do self optional. So that should be what we need to change in the storage manager. Now we can go back to the chat view controller and change the function here to be upload message video. And we're going to pass in, instead of image data, we now have a video URL that we unwrap right above up here, and everything highlights. Now, once the video has been uploaded and we get a result back, we're going to switch on the results. And let's see what we need to change in here. So we can say uploaded message video. Here we create a URL, we get a placeholder, we create a media item with that data, and then we create a message, and this should be now a video. And we say database manager, and we want to basically call the send message, passing in that message object that we have up here. And the last thing we want to edit in terms of sending the video is the send message function. So command click into that. And the only thing I believe we need to edit in here is what we do for this photo, where we just do an if let and we assign the message to the URL. And don't forget to put this in your case statement like that. And we should be good to go in terms of sending the message. So go ahead and hit Command B. Things should be compiling. And actually, it looks like I'm compiling on my device that's plugged in, so go ahead and stop that. So I'm actually going to just show you guys in the simulator really fast. I'm going to have to compile to my device, my physical iPhone that is plugged in. And the reasoning is on the simulator, of course, we can't use the camera, and the simulator library, like the photo library, does not come installed with, oh, looks like this is the other simulator. We want this one. The library does not come preloaded with any videos on the simulator, which is slightly unfortunate and kind of an oversight on Apple's part. So I just want to show you the action sheet in action. So hit this, we should get our messages like that. We're going to hit this, and then now we can select video. And you'll notice that we get the pop-up again of how we want to grab a video. So we're going to say library. And it's going to show the library without any contents because we've limited it to movie selection. So what I'm going to do is load this up on my device and basically just go through this process via the camera and just send a message, and I'll be back in 2 seconds. Alright guys, so I just loaded up the app on my physical device, took a small video and hit send, and it successfully uploaded. The one thing that I wanted to mention that I completely forgot to 2 seconds ago is initially on my device the app crashed, and the reason it crashed is when you take a video, you also need the microphone permission. So I came into the info plist, and similar to how we added a privacy description for the camera and photo usage, photo library usage, we also added one for the microphone. So we also need this because obviously a video has audio capture and the visual itself. So if you don't have it, your app will crash. But anyways, if we go back to the Firebase console, over here, if you take a look at the storage tab, we should have a new folder in here now since I just hit upload on the device, rather send, and it is message videos. And we've got one file in here. So looking good. Now let's talk about how we can actually play this video on the device. So let's hit Command R. I'm on the simulator again, and let's run it here. And if we tap into this conversation, you'll see that from the other user, we received a video, but right now it's just showing the link. And the reason it's showing a link is because we are not handling the video type in terms of loading messages. So let's go ahead and do that. And we're going to want to do that in the database manager. So let's command click into this guy. There's a function in here called get all messages that we've added. And this is responsible for, as the name implies, getting all messages, where we basically query for all the messages, and then we do a compact map, as you can see here, to basically spit out our messages. So if we go to the database, we should see that the kind in here now is video. So let's go in here, and if we open up the conversation, we should have messages, and let me close this one. It should be the latest message if I'm not mistaken. And what we care about is the type is now video, and the content for it is the URL to the video, which is perfect. So what we can say now is add a new else condition, and let me copy this whole thing actually because it'll be pretty similar. So we can say else and paste that in. If the type is video, then we can unwrap the URL, and this is going to be a, and let me fix this indentation because it's bothering me. This is going to be a video URL. The placeholder we can just say is this plus button again. So the media item is going to be the URL, which is the video URL. Image will be that. And placeholder is actually interesting for videos. So because we don't want the video to start playing in the actual conversation list itself, and when I say conversation list, I don't mean the other screen, I mean this screen. When we see a message here, we want the user to have to tap on it to start playing it, otherwise it can get super annoying. So the placeholder image for videos is pretty relevant. So there's two ways we can handle this. One way is by bringing in a static asset with a play button that the user can just tap on and it shows the same picture for the placeholder for all videos, or we can save a thumbnail. So I think for now we can go with a static asset approach for the sake of these series, but maybe later on if we have time I can explain the thumbnail as well. So let's just stick with this. And finally we want to change the kind to be a video, passing in that media item. Let's hit Command R and see what we get. We might be able to get away with getting that thumbnail for free, quote unquote, by the way this is designed. I don't think we will, but let's see. Yeah, we get the plus button here, which is what I expected. So the thing I took the liberty of doing is I grabbed this image from Google Images. It's basically like the YouTube cutout, if I'm being honest, with the play button. So we're gonna drag this into our project under the XC assets. So go over here to your XC assets, and we're gonna want to create a new asset. So right click and new image set, and we're gonna say this is video placeholder. And we're going to want to drag this guy in. Let me expand my window here again. And let's go back to this file for Database Manager. And for the video case, for the placeholder image, go ahead and paste in that asset name. And we want to change this to be named instead of system name, like that. Go ahead and hit Command R to build and run. And we should now see that play button, which isn't, again, the nicest thing, but we'll see if we have time for thumbnails. So let's hit this, and we should now see our play button here. So looking pretty slick. Now we want to allow the user to actually play it. So let's, so what's interesting is we already get a play button by default via message kit for the video image. So it looks kind of weird because we have a play button, but kind of looks like it's a part of the image. So let's just run with it. So now we of course want to just play this video when the user taps it. And that bit is going to occur in the chat view controller. We're going to come all the way to the bottom here. And we had a function we implemented called didTapImage. So we want to basically extend this function to allow us to pick up on taps on the video. The first thing you might be thinking is, well, we're tapping a video and not an image, so how come we have to edit this? And that's a pretty valid question. Basically, in the conversation view, you're actually tapping an image in reality because the video is what will actually play. It just gets rendered as a video with a play button in the middle. Rather, it gets rendered as a photo with a play image in the middle. So the first thing you want to do in here is basically handle another case, and it's almost identical to how this photo is handled. So I'm going to just paste it in, and let's change this to be the video. And this is now going to be the video URL, and let's get rid of this. The next thing we want to do is use a controller that's built into one of Apple's frameworks, and that framework we need to import at the very top here. So it is called AV Foundation. So go ahead and import that, and I don't actually remember if that controller is a part of this framework or it might be a part of AV Kit, so also bring that in. And come back down to this function at the bottom here. And the controller we want to use is called an AV player view controller. So we are going to say let VC is an AV player view controller. And this controller under the hood can handle playing a video from a remote URL, which is why it's super handy. So we can say VC dot player is an AV player, and we're going to instantiate this with the URL, and you guessed it, we pass in that video URL. Finally, we can do present, assuming I spell it correctly, for the VC, and we want to say animated is true. And we should be in business now to play the video. So go ahead and hit Command R to build and run, and let's see what happens when we tap on that video. And you guys will actually get a chance to take a look at the video I recorded. So we tap on this, and as before, we see our thumbnail here. And if we tap on this, it's loading in our video, and it looks like it doesn't automatically play, but we can hit this. Here is a quick video for our message app. And as you saw there, it played our little video. So there might be a property on here to autoplay. Let's see if there is. I think there used to be. There's auto content. Let's see, dismiss automatically, keyboard dismissal. I think there's a playback on here. Maybe there's not. Shows playback controls. That's cool. Allows picture in picture. Exit full screen. It might be off of the player actually. So there is an automatically wait to minimize. Anyways, there is a property off of one of these objects to automatically start playing the video so the user doesn't have to hit the play button in the conversation and then redundantly have to hit it down here. And this player controller does a job of caching. So now you see it actually loads in pretty quick. Here is a quick video. Granted, it's a smaller video, but anyways, that's how you can send video messages. So our conversation is looking pretty good now. We've got photo messages, text-based messages, video messages. And before we wrap up, since I guess we have some time, this video was quicker than I expected, let's also clean up how searching for another user occurs. So right now, we already have a conversation here with Joe, And we, I guess, should not be able to find Joe again, but if you look at this, we are able to find Joe again. So either we need to filter Joe out, or we need to, when tapping on Joe, open up this conversation. And right now, when we tap on Joe, I think it'll just open a new conversation. Yeah, so it'll open a new conversation. So that's not right. So maybe we'll leave that for another video. But what I want to do, at least before we wrap this up, is fix two things. And the two things I want to fix is make this a nicer cell and bring in that user's image, their avatar. And I think we can currently search for ourselves too. So if we search in here, you'll see that I can search for myself, and for some reason there's two of me popping up. So that's kind of weird. Let's try that one more time. Looks like no results. We might have an error with that, some bug about filtering, because I see two of myself, and obviously I don't want to be able to start a conversation with myself. So let's go to that controller, and that controller was new conversation view controller. And we have this function in here that does the filtering somewhere. So let's see, search users, we pass in the query, then we do filter users with text. And in this dictionary, I believe we return a key where it's name and another key, which is email. So if we go to our database, and here I had the reference up. If we go to the database and not all my Swift UI tabs, we can see in here that this is messages. Let's close this. Under users, each user has a email address, and this is their safe email and their name. So we can use the email address to deduplicate basically the results in here, because we don't want to show the current user's email. So that's pretty easy to do. So let me do that bit first. So we're going to say, also in this guard, we're first going to say let current user email equals user defaults standard, and we want to get value for key, and that key is going to be email, and we want to cast it as a string, put a comma there, and then again we want to convert this to safe email, which is database manager dot safe email, and then pass in current user email. And now we can say the results is going to be self.users filter, where the name is name lowercase as follows, and then you want to return if that name has a prefix where the has a prefix of the term lowercase, and the term is our search query. So we're going to add another guard here, and we're going to say guard let email equals $0 email as a string. And once we have it as a string, we are going to confirm that this email does not equal the current user's safe email. And if it doesn't equal the current person's email, we can continue. Otherwise, we're going to return false, because we don't want to show the current user in the new conversation. So they really shouldn't be able to start a conversation with themselves. And let's see, this is complaining because we don't need to actually cast it as a string, because we already know the value will be a string here. Let's move this onto the same line to be cleaner about it. And let me hit Command R to build and run. And now we should only be able to search for Joe. And actually, now that I just took a look at this, I guess I created a new account for another email of mine when I was debugging something. So we can actually go ahead and get rid of one of these, like so, because it was duplicated. So we can actually hit this. And if I try to search for myself, I shouldn't be able to. And like that, I'm not able to search for myself, which is perfect. And now if I search for Joe, I should be able to search for Joe, which is still working. Now let's make a custom cell for this, because this is kind of ugly if I'm being honest. So custom cells, again, pretty simple. I might actually just copy and paste this other cell we created for the conversation. So let's come in here and copy this whole thing, and we can just edit it. Let's copy this whole bit and SD web image import, and go ahead and do right click, new file. We're going to create a Swift file, and this is going to be new conversation cell and create it like that. Paste all that bit in and let's update the code in here. So this is going to be new conversation cell. Update that identifier. And we want a user image view, which works. We want a user name label, and we don't want the user's message. So let's get rid of this. And let's see, we don't want the user message being added. We don't need to lay out the user message, so get rid of this. The user name label can now take up the entirety of the content height. And we say the y is 10, so we don't need to divide by 2. The subtraction of 20 is still good to go though. And what more do we want to do? Now in the configure function, we don't have a message label, so let's go ahead and delete that. And I think this should be good to go now. If you hit Command B, you should be able to compile. Now notice that this gets created with a model of conversation. So back in the new conversation controller, let's go back there. You see here that we are actually filtering and we're creating basically just this array of these loose dictionaries. What we really should be doing is creating a model. So let's go and introduce that model, and I guess I can do that at the bottom here. So let's call this search results, and the search result is going to take the user's name as well as a email like that. And let's come up here where we were editing this code, and this is going to filter out to be a search result. And instead of simply returning, once we filter, we're going to compact map. And this is going to be basically returning that search result. So once we put that line break there, let me fix this indentation. And we can say return search results with the constructor, which takes a name and an email. We want to unwrap that name and email. So we can basically go ahead and copy this whole thing. We can get rid of the inequality check up here. And we can also convert this to one guard statement. And we don't need to lowercase here. No need to do that. So if the user has an email and name, which they should because we filtered for it already, we can continue, otherwise return nil. And then we can pass in the name here and the email there. So name is name, email is email. And then finally, we're saying self.results equals results. So we're going to have to change the self.results type. So let me just command click it to jump to wherever it's declared. So it looks like it jumped to some totally random thing. So that's the other issue with Xcode. Sometimes it's just totally wrong when you command click stuff. I think we put results somewhere up here. So we up here said results was an array of these dictionaries. So I'm going to say this is now an array of search results. Now let's see every single place where this results thing is used. This result model. So let's just do a Command F and keep pressing enter. So here we can say the text label we're saying is search index path and get the name key, but now it's a model, so we can say .name. And do we do anything with results down here? Down here we get the target results, and we call the completion with the target results. So let's change this completion handler as well, because if we take a look at the completion up here, the parameter type is this dictionary, and we want it to be a search results. And I believe we assigned this completion handler on the conversation view controller. So go back to the conversation view controller and find where you assign that completion. And it's in this function here for did tap compose button. And we're going to get results in, and we're saying create conversation with results. So change this result type here to also be a search results. And we now already have a name and email, so we don't need to guard let to unwrap it. We can simply say the email is our results.email if it decides to autocomplete. And we can say this is results.name. and this is supposed to be search results. Copy and pasted that wrong, and we should be good to go. So you guys kind of just got a good look at what refactoring looks like if we want to change something to be a model. So it's a good idea to do it from the get-go because it just makes your life easier. So let's go all the way back to our new conversation view controller. And what we were doing in here before we started refactoring is we wanted to use this new cell. Actually, yeah, let's go back to this cell that we copy and pasted, which was this new cell called new conversation cell. And the reason we refactored it is because now we can say configure with search results, and the text of the label is going to be model.name, and then we have the email too, so we can say model.email, and this should be the email address of that target user. And here we use SD web image via the storage manager after fetching the download URL to set the image. So we should be in business now. Now we can use this cell. So copy that and go to the new conversation view controller. And where's our table view? We need to register this cell. So go ahead and find the table view cell registry. Change this to be the custom cell. And this is going to be the cell class.identifier, which is the static property. At the very bottom here, you want to go to the table view implementation, which I thought was at the bottom, but let's see, it looks like it's right here. And for this function, you want to change it. So you're going to say, this is a DQ of identifier type, your new cell.identifier. You want to force cast it as the new type. And what you want to do is get rid of this bit. And this is going to be your model. So you're going to say let model equals the nth position in our collection of results. And now we can say on the cell configure with model, and it's a search result, and we can pass in the model. So go ahead and hit Command B. I know there was quite a bit of refactoring I ran through pretty quick, but we'll do a quick summary before we wrap up. So hit Command R to build and run, and let's come in here, search for Joe. And it looks like we now show Joe with Joe's image, and we have the name up here, which I don't know how I feel about that. So let's fix the sizing for this and have that be centered vertically. So come back to the new conversation cell, and let's see why the sizing is screwed up. So we have this label here. Maybe instead of making the label be lower, maybe we need to decrease the size of the image because it's quite large, if I'm being honest. So let's change the layout in layout subviews here. We're going to say that the size is going to be 50. Let's do 70 by 70. And we can say that the height of this label, we can say is the height minus 20. So let's actually make this 50, and the height of our cell is now going to be 90. So I like to do the image with 10 pixel buffer at the top and bottom. And if the height of the label is 50, 90 minus 50 gives us 40. So the Y should be 20. The X is fine, and the Y is fine as well. The other thing we want to do is change the corner radius for the image, because this should be half the size of the image. And we made the image 70, so this is going to be 35. And the other thing I actually forgot to do is in new conversation view controller, we need to implement the height for cell function. And this will allow us to give a static height for each row. So we want height for row at index path, and we want to return 90. So 70 was the height of the image, and then 10-point buffer at the top, 10-point buffer at the bottom. So hit Command R to build and run, and let's see if it looks any better. So let's hit this compose button, and let's search for Joe again. And we get Joe's name centered now. We get the avatar image at a much more appropriate size, I would say. Now again, when we tap on this, the same thing happens where we start a new conversation. What should happen is we should go into the existing conversation. So we'll probably look at that at one of the following parts. So I'm going to wrap this up here. We took a look at basically adding video messages, how to send them, how to load them. We also created a new custom cell here, which is simply of a subclass of a table view cell. And we copied and pasted from the other subclass because it's very similar. We just got rid of the message label. We updated the new conversation view controller, and we updated it in two ways. The first way was by introducing this new model here, which is much more type safe and gets rid of optionality. Instead of using a dictionary, it's more appropriate for either MVC design or MVVM. You should always, always, always have a model. And we also took a look at changing the types for the various places the search result is used. And finally, we took a look at deduplicating in the filter function here if the user's email for the current user who's searching equals the email for the search results, we want to return false, so we don't show that results. So that's a wrap. So if you haven't liked the video already, please make sure to smash that like button down below. Helps out the YouTube algorithm, helps me make more videos in general. While you're at it, if you're new and haven't subscribed, hit that subscribe button as well for daily Swift videos, many more series to come. If you have any errors, questions, comments, any suggestions, or anything at all, throw them down in the comments. I like to reply to every single comment. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you in the next part.